Welcome, everybody, back to episode 29 of the podcast. We're so happy that you're here. I think I say that every time, but I genuinely mean it every time. We are so glad that you have joined us today, and I hope you stick with us because we're going to have some amazing conversations. If you don't know, maybe this is your first episode, this is the Monochrome Podcast, podcast for production and creatives who serve in their church. And we are not here with all the answers, but we will definitely ask the right questions or get you to also find the right questions to ask.
We'll ask a lot of questions.
We'll ask a lot of questions. We will. And we will definitely give our opinions. True. That's
yes.
Something we do a lot of. Yep. Before we go any further, though, I do want to tease that next week, we're dropping an episode with an interview with Meredith Andrews, who is an astounding singer and songwriter. I feel like she's like blowing up again for some new work that she's done. And we just love her. We've had her at conference with us. We've had her do interviews with us. And it's such an amazing conversation. So join us next week, definitely to listen in. But let's keep going on this week. First of all, I am Caitlin Johnson, SALT Director. I get to help lead this wonderful team. And I am joined today by my co-host, JT. You guys got to know this. JT has been to all continental U.S. states by the age of 15. Like, that's like a life bucket thing people have. He did it by the age of 15. So I about said world traveler here.
There's a small disclaimer.
U.S. traveler.
I have been in all the states. That is not to say that I have like visited vacationed and know all the cool spots. It's oh, hi, I've been here. Okay. And we're out. So
he's at least driven through.
I have seen it and been in it, but I have not lived it.
Yes. A young traveler at heart he was. Yes. Yeah. Well, JT, with all of your great travel experience, this is nothing probably related to what's in your cart, but you've got something in your cart you want to talk about.
Yeah, so this is something that was brought, I've kind of seen before, and it kind of seems like a no-brainer, but I was like, maybe there's some people who still don't know about this, or maybe aren't fully aware of its capabilities. So anyway, it's a small thing, so if you already heard of it, just listen anyway and, enjoy the beautiful sound of my voice. But if you haven't heard about it, this could be really cool. Something important, I'm the head of marketing for SALT, and so I'm always thinking about like making things as easy as possible for people. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to be on the podcast and listen. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to come to conference. And so on the church side, you want to make it as easy as possible for your congregation to engage with your church, to find out more information, to submit prayer requests, to give, to all of these things. And so, there's texting that has been used before. There's QR codes. There's all these ways that we try to make that easy. There's, physical Connect cards. People still do those. And so one way that I found that is just kind of seems like a no-brainer to me is this new tap to give technology. And so I'll link an article about it from Subsplash in the show notes. Shout out to Subsplash. But it basically, it lets you just tap your phone to this sticker that has some like EFID or RFID, some sort of technology where you can program it to where it'll just go to a web page or it'll complete like an automated action on their phone. And so you can program that on the back end to do something. And so one way I know this is being implemented in a church that I'm aware of is they're alternating. So one seat will have like a tap to give and the other one will have like the announcements or the website or something like that. So you're always close to one of those that you can tap if you want. You could also get so granular as to like change it automatically throughout the service. So maybe they're announcing like Mother's Day is coming up. Here's how to get involved or whatever. And so you could change it to where if they scan it at that time, it will go to an announcement about Mother's Day and how they can get involved. Then when they're talking about giving and all that, you could switch it to a different one.
It's amazing
live in
technology.
The service. Yeah, so
you can do that.
You certainly don't have to get that granular. You could just make it like your links page and it just goes to all of that and you just set it and forget it. But it's a great way to just make things really, really, really easy for your people to get plugged into your congregation, especially younger people who are used to using their phones all the time. It's a great technology, so I'd encourage you to check it out.
It's kind of the next step up from QR codes.
Yes.
Again, it's much simpler than, open your camera, scan it, go to this web page. Like it's It's you just put your phone up to it and there it is. So it feels like the next level up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super easy and wonderful.
I would check it out. I think it's fairly affordable for what it is, and it could be a great way to make things easier for your people at your church to engage. So we talk a lot about SALT coming up here in October, but the day before SALT, October 7th, I want to tell you about the Worship Classic put on by Amplio Systems. It is going to be a super fun golfing event. It's totally free. So if you're coming to SALT, or if you're not planning on coming to SALT, you should still sign up for the Worship Classic and then come to SALT. Come golf with us. Come hang out. Amplio Systems is a great partner. They're a partner for this season of the podcast, and they are not just there to install gear at your church. They are leaders who've been in the trenches. They've all served in churches, and they know the pressure of Sundays and believe that your AV systems should support your ministry and not distract from it. That's why they work with churches from start to finish, designing future-proof, volunteer-friendly systems that help you and your people encounter Jesus each and every week. So if you want to learn more about the Worship Classic or Amplio Systems, go check out the links in the show notes.
Okay, so JT, post-Easter, I feel is a natural and usual time that churches make a few changes. You know, maybe they wrapped up a sermon series right at Easter, so they start a new sermon series. They might do a new stage design because Easter's over, so they change up the set, maybe introduce some new music or change up the worship style. Maybe that they've done a little bit. But I always want to ask this question because I know we've had some internal debates as a team about announcements. And Easter might be a great time, maybe, post-Easter, for your team to have this conversation too. Should we change up how we do announcements? Specifically, where in the service schedule announcements are placed. Now, I will say our team internally, our SALT team has never gotten into like a debate about this, but there's a lot of opinions, and we know this, on where do you put announcements, whether it's video announcements or announcements spoken from stage, or maybe it's just referencing, hey, go use that, like what we said, the tap to give, feature to go see all of our announcements. That's a whole debate. Should you give all your announcements from stage in one form or another, or do you just reference where they are at? But I want to talk about, and really the question here is, when is the best time to do announcements? I think it might be a little different for every church. But JT, in my opinion, and this is where the hot take comes in, in my opinion, you should not start your service with announcements, and you should not end your service with announcements. Do not make that your first or last impression of your Sunday morning. But I feel like they should be... Yes, I feel like they should be worked either into worship or worship leading to your sermon, like they're like one of those segues. But that's my take. Where are you at on this?
Yeah, this is a tough one, and I feel like everyone struggles with this and also kind of hates it no matter where it lands, because if you're in charge of writing the announcements, they're always too long every time, and every single ministry wants every little thing that's going on in the announcements every Sunday, and so you have to whittle it down to just a few, and so inevitably it always just ends up including some awkward dad joke that some people find funny, but most people don't,
or hot wife joke from the youth pastor.
Yeah, please, no more. But so I kind of, this is interesting because a lot of it too depends on how you've trained your congregation. Yeah, and I mean that in the least demeaning way possible, but genuinely, like, how you train your congregation to engage with your church is going to matter. And if it's very much verbally from the stage, then it's going to be really hard to start weaning them off of that. And so my opinion is make announcements like the shortest, like, if I'm a visitor, I don't care what's coming up, and not everything should be leaned to the visitor, but that's an important part of what you do on Sunday. And so I agree. I wouldn't kick things off with announcements. I wouldn't end things with announcements. Maybe a quick call to action to get involved in something, but not like this long laundry list of things. And so I think it's important, wherever you place it, keep it short, and then have an easy location like a website or a tap, button like we talked about, QR code, to go find more information about those things. So I personally like having the announcements in video format before the service starts.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
it's almost like a service bumper. A lot of churches do a countdown. So I would prefer you like pre-countdown, you have some slides and stuff, and then you have a video that's like, hey, here's what's going on in our church community. If you're a church who is, like my church in the South, nobody shows up till 5 minutes after the supposed start time, so everyone's going to miss that video, which is why my church doesn't do it. But if your church is a church that shows up on time, you could show the video, get the announcements out of the way, do a 30-second countdown into service, and then you do your full worship set without interruptions, go into your sermon, and then you have your, final maybe call to action for giving or for something like that at the end, or for getting involved in a ministry. But that's my preference. Doesn't work for everybody.
This is definitely not a new conversation. I just will throw it out there. We know every church has had this conversation before. I would be very interested if we threw up a poll, like in our stories on Instagram.
Yeah.
Go follow us if you aren't Salt Community on Instagram. But I would be so interested to know what our community is doing and what they have found as best practice. I think we'd get some great conversations going on that.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's not a new conversation. But at the same time, I think it all depends on how event heavy your church is too. Because if you know, like, your congregation is all about those weekly events happening, those weekend events happening, then you might want it to be part of service, because that's what people are there for, is that community aspect your church does throughout the week. Whereas if most of your church is there for the Sunday morning and you're just really starting to get into events, then maybe that timing is not ideal to do it during service.
Sure.
But yeah, that's
It's worth it to say, too, try different stuff. If what you're doing right now isn't working, there's try plugging it into different places and see how it feels. Because a lot of times it just comes down to like, does this feel awkward and salesy in service? Like, what does that look like? And then 2, I would say there's if your Sunday morning announcement section is the only time you're telling your church what's going to happen and what events are coming up, like, you need to fix that. You need to get a newsletter. You need to have a clear website that has easy ways for people to find that information.
Definitely.
Signage, bulletins, things like that. Like, there's other ways to get that information out. And so you don't want to make that your only way to communicate with the congregation, and be handicapped by, well, we have to give announcements because it's the only way anyone knows anything. That's my
I love it. We've actually had quite a number of workshops at SALT to talk about things like this. Not always just this in particular, but I know hearing the recommendations of, when and what announcements your lead pastor should give, if any, there's such a valuable thing of the lead teaching pastor giving announcements versus not, and how to utilize that. So I know that, again, it's a very big conversation to have, but I wanted to bring it up because I know after Easter, people start rethinking some of that. And I'd be very interested to hear a little bit of what our community is doing. But speaking of SALT conference, 2025 is upon us. We are in the planning stages, and we are having some of these same discussions about how do we structure our main room sessions? How do we structure the schedule for workshops, and making sure that we're utilizing announcements the right way and doing them the right time? And pretty much the conversations you're having in your church, we're doing for SALT as we plan for October. And let me just say, we're having some amazing conversations and a lot of fun planning that for you guys. We can't wait for you to come. And I just want to say, if your church is asking these questions, maybe your team, you feel like you've been circling and circling with the same questions or the same roadblocks, consider buying a ticket, coming to SALT, so that maybe we can help you get over those hurdles. Maybe we can help bring some light through a workshop or main stage session of a problem you've been facing, and you can find a way through it, or a solution your team has never thought of. I feel like that's one of the amazing things that happens at conference that we love hearing about from people. So if we can be helpful to you, which I think we can be, definitely check out salt2025.com. It has a lot of new details. At this point, not new, but we are updating constantly our speakers, our workshop titles and descriptions as our talent gets them in. So check out the website. I do want to throw out, we have a price increase May 15th coming up. So mark your calendars, or just go buy your ticket now so you don't miss it. But if you want to get the best deal on your ticket, buying sooner rather than later is key. And again, conference is October 8th through 10th. That's a Wednesday through Friday, and we really want to see you guys there. So that's my plug. I want you there. I want you to have the details. I want you to know how we can help. So I hope to see you there. We have seen One amazing man there, a couple of years, Samer Massad. He's amazing. He's awesome. He is so inspiring and yet so practical. And every time I've heard him speak, it's been amazing. But Samer is a lead pastor at Woodstock City Church in Georgia. He used to say, or I know JT referenced this in an earlier episode, that he used to lead like the college groups. But now he is lead pastor at Woodstock, and he, again, I can't brag on him enough. I just want to keep saying he's amazing. But he sat down with Luke for an interview at conference this past year, and they talked about how to model and lead your team to live the way God called them to. And I want to say more specific than that, but I don't want to spoil it. So come take a listen and hear the just awesome insight that he has.
All right, we are here at SALT Conference with a friend and a guy who's been a part of SALT numerous times, Samer Massad.
What's up, Luke?
Welcome.
Good to be here.
So glad you're here. You just got done talking.
Yep.
And
Great session. That was awesome.
You just unpacked something pretty powerful about just this idea of the grace of the yoke of Christ.
Yeah.
And that so often in ministry, we kind of get ourselves backed into a corner of doing and more and excellent, you know, and it sort of starts breeding into perfection. And I want to maybe dovetail into something you said towards the end.
Yeah.
You made a comment, and that was, my kids need a father more than my church needs a pastor.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's press into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
So obviously I got kids.
Yep.
We've bonded over this. And I remember telling you one year that like SALT had always been my calling. And I mean, it was everything I thought I was supposed to pour myself into. And then I get married and priorities start shifting a hair. Not that SALT's not important or the calling anymore, but it's like now there's a first priority. I can't just go work every night or pour myself in, and then kids come along. Right. And we've talked about this in backstage green rooms year after year. So this is fun that we could do this here.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Speak to that.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, so really there's, we were talking about Jesus saying, come to me, all of you are weary and burdened. I will give you rest. Take my yoke. And this idea that, his first century followers, they're interpreting this through the lens of the yoke of the law, very heavy burden, can't keep it. But today, like it might not be the yoke of the law, but there's other yokes, and yoke of ministry is one of them. Yeah. And, but Jesus like, come be yoked to me. And so when I'm yoked to Jesus, my priorities change. What I give my first and my best to changes. And so if I'm following in the way of Jesus, ministry is not king. My first ministry is my family. And so that Eugene Peterson, the way he translates in the Message, Matthew 11, 20 through 30, he has this brilliant line. Jesus says, learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And so for me, the opposite of an unforced rhythm of grace is when I'm trying to force it, when ministry depends on me, when Sunday depends on me as the lead pastor, when the meeting depends on me, when I'm trying to make things happen because it all, whatever. When I'm overbooking my schedule because that's what you're supposed to do in ministry. But the unforced rhythms of grace is when I'm yoked to Jesus, I've got a proper view of myself. I'm not that important. Yeah. And my family gets propped up as my first ministry, my first and my best. And so when I'm leaning into the unforced rhythms of grace, my healthy outlook is my church needs a pastor. Our church needs pastors. We've got staff. They're going to be fine. But more than anything, my kids need their dad because that's the only thing I can do for them. Yeah. A lot of people can lead at my church.
I want to say this. I think that's an easy line to say. It's a hard line to live.
100%.
And so where do you put healthy boundaries up? I mean, you're senior pastor, and I want you to talk to senior pastors because there's probably an executive leader or a team leader listening to this that you're going to hopefully speak some truth to. But I also want you to speak maybe, how do you put boundaries as someone who's not the top guy?
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
When pressure is coming, how do you draw those boundaries?
Yeah.
You can't just not do the work.
You can't just not do the work. Yep. And that's the thing for me, it's not about, it's not that stuff's falling through the cracks. But sometimes you're saying no to things that would be nice to say yes to. But you're trusting that it's going to be okay without you. So that's kind of the first thing. It's when ministry becomes like this idol and an elevated view of yourself of, this Sunday or this event is not, God can't use this if I'm not there. That's kind of crazy, right? And so, from a boundary standpoint, I think from a senior leader, if you're not in a position of like the senior leader, right, there, you've got, you want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. Am I allowed to say no to this? So my first thing as a senior leader, your staff isn't going to do this if you don't model it for them first.
And provide context and freedom to do that.
To do it.
Like you can't be giving them things Friday night.
100%.
There's literally no work time.
Because if you text them at Friday at 8 p.m. about something, then they're thinking, I need to respond to them at 8 p.m. on Friday. It's my boss.
Yeah.
If he's texting me, then that's the new boundary.
Right.
And so you have to model it. I remember when I first stepped into the role as lead pastor of our church almost 3.5 years ago, my first staff meeting, I read them a list of promises that they could expect from me as a leader. And one of them was, I'm going to prioritize my family over them. And I'm promising them this, one, for accountability, and two, so that they would have the freedom to do the same. So the first thing is, if you want to foster this, you've got to model it as a leader. And there's no formula, but week in and week out, there's going to be opportunities for you to choose your family first. Here's a really, really practical example. Literally tomorrow, we're filming this on a Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday. We have a once a year parent summit event where we call all parents and we want to help, we want to invest into the parents of our church. Big event that we do once a year. We've got Tim Elmore coming. If you know Tim Elmore, I'm kind of shocked we got him booked. He's so gracious. Yeah, Habitudes. I mean, he does so much work with generations. And I was there. I was booked to host it, to interview him as part of the Q&A or whatever. Well, after we planned this event months and months ago, my oldest is in kindergarten. And tomorrow night also happens to be her elementary school's biggest event of the year. PTA's biggest. I'm a PTA guy now. And it's the fall festival.
Yeah.
And Harper was so excited about it. And when I found out the dates conflicted, I did not have the heart to tell her that I wasn't going to be there. And I just decided I wasn't going to tell her that I was. So I emailed our team and I said, hey, it's about 3 weeks before the event. I said, hey, I just want you guys to know I can't be there. I can't host it. Here's why. And I literally said in the email, I'm not going to tell my daughter no to this. Let me know if you want help figuring out who else can fill my spot. And rather than, oh my goodness, this event's going to fall apart, it was, I respect that so much. Of course you're going to go be there for Harper. We're going to be fine.
And you just modeled.
And you modeled it. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
You modeled it.
Yeah.
And so there's always moments where you can, it doesn't happen often, but every 2 or 3 months, I try to pick a Sunday where we pick someone else to host. Not a Sunday that I'm preaching. That makes it easier. I don't have to do the welcome, and I just stay home and I go to church with my family.
Yeah.
For me, there's little things that I'm paying attention to. My wife is a great filter. If she says something along the lines of, hey, you've been working a lot lately, my immediate reaction is to get defensive. So I'm like, what do you mean? I got da 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 da. I've learned, don't be defensive. She's got a better view of this than you do.
Yeah.
And so if Julie thinks I'm working too much or I've been gone too many nights, it's time for me to not be defensive and figure out how to dial it back. If my daughter, my two oldest, Harper and Samantha, they're old enough I've got 4 girls, and they're 6 and 4.5. They're old enough to understand when I have to go work. Whenever they stop being like surprised that I've got to go work on a random night, that's concerned. Like,
yes.
Whenever they're like, wait, why do you have to
good.
go tonight? And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you're surprised because that means it's not a normal rhythm.
Yeah.
I want it, if it's ever like, oh yeah, cool. All right, Dad, every other Thursday and Tuesday and Wednesday, see ya, but it's like, it's a surprise.
You've created a habit that Dad is home.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always want it to be a surprise.
That's so good.
So you're just always looking for moments. Honestly, look for moments where you can say no to things.
Yeah.
As a senior leader. Another thing, I try to utilize time. I try to leave work every day at 4:00. Work day is 9 to 5. I get up early before my kids. I will knock out email and things before I get to the office. Why? So that I can get home a little bit earlier. I want to model that. My work is getting done. I want to work harder than anybody to model that. But again, I'm modeling. So model it, look for things to say no to. And if the senior leader doesn't do it, you're not going to give any leaders that report to you or the younger leaders that are figuring out how to lead a family and do ministry, you're not going to give them permission to do it either.
We were talking about this earlier, and I mentioned that phrase, like my calling. And this is like what I feel like God's called me to. And you kind of said, hey, can I give you a new word?
Yeah. I heard this recently. I don't know that we talk enough about calling, and the calling to ministry, but I think all Christians have a calling of sorts. But as it relates to our job, I threw out this word, hey, sometimes I think God has us on assignment.
Yeah.
And right now, the assignment that he has for me is to be the senior leader and the lead pastor at Woodstock City Church. And I'm going to do that as long as he has me on assignment there. That could change. As far as it depends on me, what I don't think is going to change is me being a dad to Harper, Samantha, Zara, and Layla. And so we said that assignment is biblically not going to change. That's my primary. Yeah. And so being a husband to Julie and being a parent, a dad to my kids. Yeah. And it's whatever my assignment is, that has to fit into that calling, because that's a calling in and of itself. We talked about this too. When I come home, when I walk into through the garage, and they run, Daddy's home. They're not asking, hey, where did you speak? Yeah. They're not asking, hey, how was your directional team meeting today? Yeah. They're not asking, what stages I was on. Yeah. They're not asking any of that when ministry becomes an idol, you begin to start to see success. They are, Daddy's home. Can you come play with me? Yes. Daddy, let's go build a zoo with magnetiles, blocks, and our animals. Daddy, let's go do a tea party. Daddy, can I ride the bike? Daddy, my daughter is into a Beauty and the Beast phase. There you go. Like, can we go dance to Beauty and the Beast? I'm like, yes, I will dance every time you ask me that. Yeah. And it's, I don't know if you ever had, I always have these random moments where I'm like, when I get to be in the presence of Jesus, I kind of hope one day, I hope there'll be this cool power. Well, he'll get to show us moments from our life that brought us a lot of joy. I have this weird hope that I'd get to see a montage of my girls running to the garage door every time I got home. It's just a perspective shaping little moment and just a nugget of God's grace in my life to remind me, hey, there's something way more important than anything you did today. And it's the daddy. And it's the only thing I can do, be their dad. No one else can be their dad. Literally nobody else. There's a lot of incredibly qualified people that can preach for me, that can lead our church, that can do all sorts of things that I do. That's good. None of us are that important. Yeah. Nobody is irreplaceable as it relates to your job and your ministry. What do you say to the person listening to this? And there may not be many, but I'm thinking about maybe one or two specifics that there could be a person listening to this going, Samer, man, I'm convicted. I don't have that sort of love for my family. My love for my job is greater. What do you say as a pastor? Wow. Yeah. Not necessarily a leader. Sure. Right? Put your pastor hat on. Love people. Yeah, that's good. How do you say, hey, there's something maybe out of alignment here? Yeah. Yeah. Man, that, I would, from a pastoral standpoint, I would start asking some hard questions around, hey, we've elevated ministry, and this sounds like such a churchy word, but we at that moment you've kind of elevated it to a point of idolatry. Yeah, that it could be where you're deriving value. It could be where your identity, significance, worship. Yes. So honestly, if you're listening and you're even able to identify an ounce of that, huge first step. Yeah, yeah. I think there are. I would be curious. Hey, does anyone else in your life know this? Is it something you're just kind of hiding, or has it been called out so much that no one says it anymore? Yeah, maybe that too, right? Has been called out so much that they don't even bother anymore. He's not going to do that. I would pastor this person, and I think there's a lot of ways and a lot of smarter ways to probably do this, I would imagine. I think one thing I would ask them is, what story do you want to be true of your life in 15 years? What do you, when you think about your kids no longer being in the phase that they're in, and you're no longer doing the job that you have, what do you want to be true about your relationship with your kids? Like maybe one thing is breaking down all these. Get out of the moment and think about what you want to be true in the future. You know what I want to be in the true future? My pastor, Andy Stanley, says this a lot, that he wants to make sure his kids want to come home when they don't have to live there anymore. In other words, that he's kept the relationship. So for me, I'm like, hey, me and Julie, we imagine a dinner table full of our kids and our grandkids because we invested in the relationship. I would say to this person, hey, do you want your kid, and this might sound harsh, but I have this fear that my kid will my kids will grow up resenting the church because it stole their dad.
Yeah.
So for me, I would say, hey, think about the future. What do you want their faith to look like? What do you want their?
I'm gonna pick
go
there.
ahead. Yeah.
You just totally pivoted the fact that like your job may be your idol, but you just said, but is that going to actually be the thing that pushes them away from?
That pushes them away from.
You might love ministry so much that you have realized that you're actually pushing people away.
If my ministry in the church consistently takes me away from my kids, and eventually they're going to get to a point where it's no longer just innocence, and they're going to start to realize it as they grow older and see it, and dad's not around, and something was more important than me and mom.
Yeah.
What else would that do other than breed resentment around the thing that I've given my life to because I said it's so important, but I'm not living in a way to make it important to my kids.
You also said something tonight that I wanted to call out real quick. In the limited time we have, you and it was like a little hint, but you were like, even vacations, like need vacations, like that's not rest. And I thought about like just a practical little thing of like, when was the last time you took PTO and you just were at home? Kids still went to school. Kids still went to daycare. Kids still did their thing. Yeah. But you weren't in the hustle bustle of being the Uber that's not paid for. You're not constantly having to, and I'll be the first to confess, a couple weeks ago, I took a day off that I hadn't taken off like regular days outside of vacations. And I took one off and we filled it with busy stuff. Yeah. We did things around the house that we needed to get done. It's like, I didn't get the quality time I was hoping to get.
Right. I have not done that enough. In fact, there's a guy that goes to our church, been a part of our church for years and years and years. And him and I get lunch every now and then. He's one of the guys that goes to our church that, he's like, I want to be like a friend to he's older than I am. So I looked to him for wisdom and investment and all that. And so me and Tim were having lunch and he asked me and he's so great. He runs this financial investment firm.
It's always the financial guy.
It is. And it's amazing. He like leads it with biblical, like he has like a setup for his staff to take Sabbath. It's not a Christian, like you need to go rest. Yeah. So he asked me a similar question. He's like, hey, when's the last time you took time off just to like be at home? Because to your point, when you go to the beach with your kids, it's not vacation. That's called a trip.
With kids.
Exactly, right? So he asked me, and I just thought, I have not. I'm always saving it for the trip, for the this, for the that. And he was just like, and he just challenged me. He's like, you need to do this. And so this question right here is the Lord saying, hey, you need to go do this. But I don't do it enough. Yeah. And I should just be present and don't do anything present. It's funny. And there's moments when I've experienced it. Like I took, when our fourth kid was born in this past May, I took like 3 weeks off, 2 weeks off, whatever. And it was for a purpose, but I experienced some of that. It was like, I'm home. Yeah. I'm with my kids and it was awesome. And I was actually sad to go back to work. I was like, man, I love my job, but can I extend this to August?
That's when that tipping point happens.
Yeah. So I've seen the glimpses of how good that can be, but you get in the hustle and bustle of this, that, and the other. And it's like, and I don't know if you do this, I can like feel guilty or bad about it.
Oh yeah.
The
shame's powerful.
People need me at work, right? I need to be doing this, whatever.
And my wife and I have talked about this, that like work gives you purpose in 100%. A very nearsighted sort of gain. Mm-hmm. Family is purpose that you never get to see that gain. I mean, it takes 18 years, right? You're talking vision. You talk about Andy, like they want to come back grandkids.
Right. Yeah, man. Future.
I mean, that's like, I can't see that vision.
Right.
My action today isn't affecting that as much, but at work, that decision we made a difference, or that ministry we launched changed lives.
Yeah. And that's the thing where you have to.
It's like an adrenaline rush.
It really is. It's like, no, it is. It's that it
dopamine hit.
The significant, it fills the significance bucket that we have. And I'm important. And this person said that what I did was impactful and all that. And so you're right. You can see that. And that's why for us, it's like, even if you can't see, you might not be able to see the vision of your future for him, but you could probably sit down and imagine what you want to be true. Yeah. You could probably look at your own story and your own family and just maybe want the opposite of that. And so it's, okay, where do I want it to be? What do I want to be true with me and my family? And I think at the end of the day, and I know we got to wrap up, but you will, when you sacrifice your family on the altar of ministry, I think the short-term gain of ministry will feel good, but I don't know that there is no way that is emotionally, mentally, and spiritually sustainable. So I think you'll end up sacrificing your family and lose longevity in your ministry.
I mean, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but like, I'm just going to say this. We don't have to comment. Like all the moral failures of pastors we hear about, a lot of them they have failed family and then they lose and fail ministry.
Exactly. So it's like, if you want both, like there's a balance. One's got to have priority over the other.
Yeah.
And I think I'm learning, I am confident that in the long run, you'll regret at the base level, to say it this way, you'll regret prioritizing ministry over your family, and you risk losing both versus you set the right priorities. And I believe both can flourish. Like the order of operations, you remember this? It's like there's multiple, the parentheses and the whatever the whole thing is. It's like, get the order of operations right. Yeah. And even if you are, I've heard Andy say this a lot too, especially for anyone listening with younger kids, no for now, like no for a season isn't no forever.
Yeah.
No for now isn't no forever.
Yeah.
No for a season. So you might be in a season where you're saying no, but I'm just telling you, the investments you're making, like you're gonna reap the benefits of those no's, because you're gonna be able to, like, your yes in ministry is gonna be a lot longer, a lot healthier. You're gonna have integrity. You're gonna be able to talk to people about how to lead their families because you got the order of operations right.
So good. I mean, Jesus says, right, that you're gonna leave your mother and father, cleave to the one you're called to, and I mean, that whole passage of like, hate your mother. I mean, that's strong words, right? So,
Jesus.
I mean, if he's saying about mother and father, like maybe work is also in there.
Yeah, probably. So,
dude, this is so good. I've said this to you every time we get together, but I'm like, we at SALT need to have this conversation about healthy family life. Yep. And we talk a lot about calling and craft and skill and all this. So thank you for opening up. Thank you for entering in.
Thanks, Luke. Man,
and having this conversation.
Grateful. Love y'all.
Oof, I just love hearing from him. He just has so much insight and so much wisdom to give. So I am so grateful that Samer and Luke were able to sit and have that conversation. But I want to thank you guys too, everyone listening, everyone watching, for tuning into this podcast. Again, we love having you here. So thank you for being part of these conversations, and thank you for joining our community. You are definitely a part of it, and we're grateful. Make sure to check out the show notes for all the links and things that we reference. They will be there, so you can click them and go into detail, or maybe buy something and add it to your cart as well. Also, anything about our guests are in the show notes, anything about our sponsors, Amplio's in those show notes. And if you want to get plugged in more, it's all there. That is the place to go. But also make sure you subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend, give us a 5-star rating. All those things are super helpful for us, and hopefully it helps us help you better in the future too.
And
just
if
as
you're
a reminder,
on YouTube, subscribe.
Yes, YouTube as well. That way you can actually see our beautiful faces. You can see some of the videos and resources we share. We love to have you there too. But next week, the beautiful face you will get to see will be Meredith Andrew. Again, she is an astounding singer-songwriter. We have had an awesome conversation with her. So we hope to see you next week to tune in for that.